YouTube land. I'm Todd Brown, Target Panic Records. Here in my living room home studio. I'm about one day away from recording a wonderful rock and roll band called 13. I have a video I made at like 4 o'clock yesterday morning about the various things you need to do to transform your house and some of the humor involved in that. Today I would like to take you through my world that is mostly my passion, microphones. I've spent probably the last 15 years collecting and listening and trying out microphones like you would believe. Now you'd think that after all those years I would learn that the typical Neumanns and the Sennheisers, the very high dollar microphones that people, they're sought after and they're very expensive. And you can go buy a fake one at Guitar Center, or you can own a real one and pay up to $5,000 or $7,000 for one. If I had $7,000, I would buy a new car. So I don't think I would be wasting it on a Neumann microphone. However, if I need one, I know a studio in town that will rent one to me real cheap called FREE, and I'm down with FREE. Let me take you through some of my microphones. I clean up a bit of my mess. One of my favorites, actually, that I found to be very versatile would be the Rode NT1. This is the A model. It was the first one to come out, I believe. I bought it on a whim. There was a music store going out of business, and 90 bucks. What do you know? Probably one of the best overhead mics for drums or vocal mics I've ever come across in my life, and I think it's worth every red cent. You would do well to get yourself one of these one day. Something I picked up also for about $80 was the AT2020 from AudioTechnica. It's amazing on about anything from piano to kick drum to electric guitar and acoustic guitar. Vocals, not so good. It's a little bright and a little thin for vocals, for my taste. You may like it, but I don't think that I do. One of the things that came with the studio gear when I first started out in Nashville, we had this hanging up in there for years, and the gentleman that purchased all this gear knew what he was doing when CAD was very young in their days. I have the 200, and I also have the 350, which is really big vocal mic like they use in like Jay-Z's studio and stuff. I know that he has one. Really solid, believe it or not. We take it out to live reinforcements, and it is the overheads in small clubs, and we almost don't need to add anything to it. It's a very nice large condenser. I've tried it on vocals. Some people can sound good in it, most people do not, so it's not something I use for vocals. Now its bigger brother, the E350, is a vocal mic, strictly. Or I would use it to, say, I have a concert coming up with my son's junior band in his high school. That to me is where you hang up two really good mics like this and capture it ambient, and that's what I do. Of course I have the staple, the Shure PG52. It didn't go out and get the beta like everybody else did in the live business. I never needed it. The betas, I think, crackle and don't last near as long as the older Shure, the D series or the PG series. I bought the PG series because I felt that it was a really good value that you get up to 6 mics for under 500 bucks. That's almost unheard of. So, a name like Shure, you can't go wrong. Also, I won these at a contest at Guitar Center, believe it or not. It was a pair of MXL 990, 991. You've probably seen them being sold everywhere. I didn't know what to think of it since they were kind of low budget, but I gotta tell you, stringed instruments, this is the stuff right here. The little 991 pencil condenser, really good for hi-hat, really good for snare drum. That's about it though. I tried it on electric guitar. It's good for clean, open, reverby, sort of natural amp sounding guitar without any effects. That little 991 does a really good job. And I have a matching set of them so that I can put them up binaural, and they're better than not having them match. So, one of my pride and joys is my Model 1A groove tube, large condenser, all tube circuit, comes with its own power brick and special 25-pin cable that is very hard to keep up with and keep clean, keep getting bent, fucked up, people throwing it down. So I use this with musicians who have a little bit of care. I don't use it so much on the young guys because they knock it over. I'm out, $3,000 bucks. They don't make these anymore, and I haven't yet to find one anywhere for under $3 grand. So I felt really lucky to get that. Another set I have here, of course, is the PG series drum microphones from Shure. Absolutely great value. You get a couple of your standard copies of the SM81. I have yet to find the difference. I actually have a set of 81s that I sold them to a guy who needed them more than I did. I wouldn't feel nearly as bad if one of these hit the ground. The SM81s, they're a little pricey, so I would be less careful and less inclined to take them out and throw them around with, the young metal bands and punk rock and hardcore, which is what we normally do. Comes with 3 tom mics, 2 overhead condensers, and its own kick. I do so many metal bands that gotta have double kick, so that's what I do. I keep them both, and you never know when you need it. The PG, the 52 bass guitar, really good. Kick drum, really good. Guitar amp, if you're looking for something dark, you got a bi-amping system where you're using 2 amplifiers for the same guitar and a splitter. One of these is really good, about 8 inches away from the largest cone, and actually gives a nice little roar. And I've used it also to like the back of an open back cabinet, like an old like a 212 or a Fender or something like that. It works out really well for that, but you have to be careful with phase, of course, you know that. Oh yeah, and go on to more interesting things. I came across a neighbor who had various items for sale, and he had a set of CAD live drum mics with these cool little springy clips that go on the actual drum rims. My Shures have them, but they're nylon molded plastic, and they don't fit every drum I've tried. The guys with the real thick outer shells and stuff like that, they just don't fit as well, and I've had them actually fall off and like roll off in the middle of the show. So it's kind of embarrassing. So nevertheless, I try to keep that down to a minimum. So I use these guys live, and same thing. You get 3 tom mics, a kick drum, and 2 of these little tiny 217 SM or CM rather 217 pencil condensers. These are great for acoustic guitar. They're great for location recording, and just about anything you point it at. Really good. 8 to 10 feet away. It's a very ambient microphone. Lots of bang for the buck in that one. I really appreciated the deal I was given, and I felt very, very lucky to have it. And let's see, I have some very old AudioTechnica vocal microphones. This one here is trying to come apart. This is the AT814. They don't make this anymore. I think there's probably a good reason for that. It's kind of shiny. But I had a punk band guy throw it down and crack it on his mohawk head, and it hasn't survived much. But if you put it in place for recording, it's not bad. It's good for female vocals, actually. Of course, I have 57s coming out of my ears. I have one new one, very fresh, one that's about 2 years old, and one, this Unidyne 3 57 is absolutely 22 years old. It has been around the world with a rockabilly band and then a jazz band that was given to me by a dear friend of mine who just passed away. And it's kind of cool. I hold it near and dear. I use it on snare, I use it on toms, guitar cabs. This is really good for a Marshall 800 or something like that. Totally throw that on there. In combination with a few other secret microphone placements and whatnot, Of course, the old 48, which is dead and buried. The very old 5795B Type 1 vocal sphere microphone from Shure. I think this was probably made in 1968. I don't know how it survived this long. Awesome little microphone on hi-hat.